So arrived at the Causeway. It is just before 7 a.m. Sunrise is in about an hour, but we're just starting to get now. Of course, being where I am, not ideal for sunrise, as I said earlier. But what is nice is it's quite clear this way, where sun is rising. Kind of some interesting clouds. Sadly, however, not a lot of mist. I.e. no mist. So unless I get down to the causeway itself and there's some mist there, then I don't think I'm going to get my misty atmospheric shots. But given the fact that I've only just arrived in the area, i.e. the North Antrim Coast, in the last, let me just put that light back on again, try to get a bit of brightness on here. Given the fact that I've only just arrived in the North Antrim Coast two and a half weeks ago, all of these initial missions out are recon missions more than actually taking images. So still going to give it a go. Got my flask of coffee and we'll go for a dander. See you in a bit. So you're not going to be able to see me because it's still dark. But 2 minutes, well, 5 minutes out of the car, and it almost came to a shuddering halt. Didn't realise that the path down, which is kind of down this way, was so damn slippy. It was a proper whoop 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 Torval and Dean job. So yeah, that was fun. So before I go any further, I'm going to put my camera away, focus my head torch down at my feet, and take it very slowly. Could really do without breaking an ankle on my first visit to the causeway at dawn. So yeah, and as I thought, yeah, unless the mist comes as the temperature, okay, because it is quite still. But I don't think it's meant to, the temperature's meant to rise too much, so I don't think we're going to get those foggy, misty conditions, but we'll go down anyway, slipping and sliding as we go. See you in a bit. So you probably recognise those ship stones. So this is probably one of the most iconic. You can't really see it at the moment because it's quite dark. Yeah, this is welcome to the Giants Causeway. You'll be able to see more as the sun comes up, trust me. But yeah, no mist. Boo hoo. So this is where you have to be very quiet, just in case. So we're going to keep very quiet, just in case we awake the giant. So you can see there's just a little bit of light coming up. So that's where the sun is rising, and of course I'm several hundred meters below that ridge line, so we're not going to see sunrise per chance. But I'm kind of hoping initially, now that there's no mist, to do a shot down here in the shoreline somewhere, and perhaps just pick up some of that early morning blue light. So we'll get the camera away, we'll drink the last of my coffee, and we'll get set up. See you in a bit. So I'm down here on the shore's edge, just working on maybe a couple of compositions. A couple of tips. So firstly, just to sort of see what's going on the back of the screen, I normally yank up my ISO or shoot a larger aperture, just to kind of, you know, bring things a little bit easier to see, even though the final image isn't going to look like this. The other thing that is really useful, and one of the reasons why I carry a head torch, is for focus points. So right now I'm trying to get a focus point just in front of the camera. Shooting at f11, that should give me a really nice depth of field, but right now, trying to get that focus point. I'll just bring the camera down so we're not, you can see that we're not actually achieving a focus point. With a little shine of a head torch, however, you can now see kind of where I'm illuminating right in front of me, hopefully, and there we have an active focus point. So very useful to carry a head torch with you, even as your eyes get used to the light. The head torch comes in really handy for achieving a focus point. Right, back to it. So as you can see, dawn is fast approaching. So I'm just down here at the water's edge. Because we have this cliff face, obviously, as I've said before, I'm not going to get to see sunrise. But there is just some nice clouds kind of up over this that are starting to sort of take on the colour of dawn. As luck would have it, I found a bit of a lead-in line with this bit of driftwood, a couple of rocks out to sea to carry your eye all the way through to the cliff face and the stack, the needle. Not the best composition ever, and I probably need to, so I'm using a 3-stop and a 1-stop neutral density soft grad from Formatt-Hitech just to hold back some of those highlights in the sky. Probably need to work on a little bit more on my composition. Not hugely impressed with this, bit too busy. Although I quite like how this tuft of grass is sort of maybe bringing you in. Not quite sure whether that visual anchor of this white rock is maybe a little bit too bright, but we'll work. This light is probably going to disappear very shortly, so I'm going to put down the camera and take another couple of shots. So the other thing that I like to do, even though I'm shooting here with a 3-stop and a 1-stop neutral density grad, soft grad, which you can see on the front of the, by the way, this is a polarizer holder, and it fits on the front of the Formatt-Hitech modular system. So even though I'm shooting with a 3-stop and a 1-stop just to hold back some of the highlights in the sky, I also make sure that I shoot a couple of bracketed shots. Now, not bracketed shots in the typical HDR 1 under level 1 over, but just to say, okay, just in case I can't, for all the best will in the world, even with a 2-stop and a 1-stop, now I could probably put, or sorry, 3-stop and a 1-stop, I may put the 3-stop and the 2-stop on just to give me that extra stop of holding back the highlights. But what I like to do is just shoot something rather underexposed, just to make sure that I do have detail in at least a couple of my frames in the sky. This means that if all else fails, or if I want to, I can blend that in post. So not a typical HDR shot as such, but more blending in a better exposed sky. And that really comes in handy when you really do have some extreme difference in light as we have here. You know, the sun, of course, because the sun is rising behind this cliff face, the sun hasn't reached down here yet. Now, of course, it is naturally illuminating a little bit. You can see the daylight is coming into the sky and into the foreground, but of course it's much brighter because sunrise is about 10 minutes away now, 10-12 minutes away. So just a little tip there, that even if you are shooting with graduated filters, you may want to just shoot a couple of exposures with the grads on, of course, just a much more underexposed sky, and then blend that in Photoshop. And I'll probably look at doing a little bit of a guide on that in a few moments. So back to shooting, back in a minute. And I haven't slipped over yet, which is always a bonus. So take a really good look around your frame after you have taken the shot. the last thing you want to do when you go home is realize there's something in the frame that is detracting from it that you're going to have to remove in post. Now, I'm not talking about rearranging the frame completely and moving sticks and stones and yada yada yada, but just spend a few moments once you've taken an exposure, take a look around the frame and just make sure. And what I noticed here was, you're probably not going to be able to see this too well, but just on the very left hand side of the frame there's just a little stick poking in, and that's that stick right there. That's the offending bugger. So we'll play a bit of fetch, we'll throw it over there and we'll take another shot. Got to be quite quick here because already the colour's just now just before sunrise, so I'm really hoping that in the few minutes after sunrise these nice clouds over here will take on some additional colour. So let's take that shot now without the stick in the way. See you in a bit. So the other thing that I'm doing here is I quite like the composition that I have here. We have this bit of driftwood, a couple of rocks, and then of course still those moody looking clouds on the horizon and the cliff face. However, you'll notice that every so often a larger wave comes in and just washes over some of those rocks, and that's when I'm flicking the exposure. So I'm actually going to flick it 3, 2, 1, and I'm just going to flick it now. It wasn't a huge one, but it just creates a little bit more interest on those rocks. I'm actually shooting at f13, ISO 200. I'm at about 12mm on the Fuji 10 to 24mm lens, and I'm shooting for 2.5 seconds. And we'll just give that a go. Yeah, just creates a little bit more interest on those rocks. Cool. Sunrise is, I think it's just happened. So, moved along. Now up on top of one of the main parts of the causeway. So you probably recognise this view. Now I bring it round. So this is the kind of main part of the causeway. Camera bag. So, one of those situations where things can get difficult because it's not just a very straight, nice, easy horizon. So, kind of looking at this puddle here that lower down just catches some of the reflections in the clouds and some of the morning light. What would be great is if the sun was a little bit higher and maybe catching light somewhere else, but what I'm noticing is, as expected, the light is just starting to kind of catch the ridge line up there. But of course, stone chat, I think, come to join me. My bird ID skills are pretty hopeless, so it's probably a peregrine falcon. No, I'm pretty sure it's a stone chat. Anyway, so because I want to catch that little bit of light on the ridgeline, detail in the clouds, but of course the whole front of the causeway here is still in shadow. It makes it very difficult to use filters. I've been trying, you've probably tried this yourselves, I've been trying to shoot with the filter angled, because of course there's maybe a little bit of an angle there, but it's not really working. It's just making it a little bit too dark, where I don't want it to be too dark, too light where I don't want it to be too light. So I think this is going to be one of those shots where I do like the composition, but I think it is going to have to be a blended shot. I'll probably use maybe the one-stop ND Grad just to hold back some of those highlights, but I'm going to shoot some bracketed shots. Now, the sun is kind of rising here, so chances are this area is actually not going to get illuminated, not at this time of the year at dawn anyway, but that's okay. even just some of these puddles, some of these stones taking a little bit of the morning light, that's okay. Kind of some of that light is still touching the top of the cliff face, so we'll see how this. I'm going to leave my camera here and go for a bit of a wander around the causeway, which is extremely slippy. See if there's any other compositions. I really like how the light is starting to kind of illuminate the waves down here, so I'm including that a little bit in the composition as well. So go for a bit of a wander and watch to see how that light's going to develop on that causeway face. Okay, so as usual the iPhone decided to die battery wise, and then decided to come alive again. So anyway, so I've moved up. The shot I was kind of going for, it wasn't really kind of working. The sun is just sort of clipping the horizon, well, the horizon that I can see over the ridgeline. So that wasn't really working. So I decided to come along and see about some long exposure stuff. And I noticed that just here, you can just about, yeah, the sun is just starting to touch a little bit of that rock in the far distance. And that is what I really want in the long exposure shot. So of course I've got these lovely hexagonal stones, which is what has made the Giants Causeway famous. Some puddles in them just to get a little bit of interest. Obviously a reasonably rough sea, just creating that nice mystical look over the rocks, but most importantly something in the distance to look at. I think if this rock was all in shade, it probably wouldn't work too well. So I'm actually shooting at f13 ISO 200. I have a 10-stop ND filter on, along with 3-stop ND graduated soft grad, just to hold back some of the highlights in the skies. And what I'm most interested in is how much that light on that far rock helps to kind of just pull your eye through the image. I think it's all good and well having misty sea and even a little bit of kind of foreground interest, but I'm really interested in that light on that fore rock. So we're at 40 seconds. It's going to have to be a Fuji battery change in a moment as well. Lots of batteries with me. So we're at 47, 48, 49. Let's just get down and see whether or not this is going to be of any shakes. So 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. You never know your luck, right? Maybe something I'd rather hunt. So just wondering now, back up to the visitor centre. One of the things about the photographer's ephemeris that I was talking about earlier was on the iPad version, and I guess on the iPhone version as well, you can actually see the shadows that are cast by objects in the way of the sun. Even though I had seen this, didn't pay a massive amount of attention to it. And of course, what that has meant that even though the sun semi-broke the ridgeline, none of it actually made its way down onto the foreground here, which is fine. The only bit that was actually highlighted by the sun was the top of that little crop of rocks, which actually worked reasonably well for a long exposure shot. So again, that's a very important thing to pay attention to when you're using the photographer's ephemeris, is the shadows cast by objects in the way of the line of the sun. So with most of the light now gone from here and probably not going to reappear, I'm going to go and try to see whether I can find Port Coon Jetty. May not be able to get to it because it's high tide, but we'll see. So it's about a 15-minute walk, slow amble, back up to the visitor centre, and yeah, good job. So I think that's pretty much the morning shoot over. As I said, Port Coon Jetty is something to do at low tide, which is fine. But yeah, some potentials from this morning. The photographer's ephemeris was correct. 9:42 is when the sun breached the horizon, which it was around then. Just what I didn't pay attention to was the shadows cast, which of course is obvious, but kind of got away with it a little bit because there was that little bit of light on the top of the outcrop of rocks, which is actually now just over here. So I was kind of a little bit around the coast there, looking back towards this. Walking up this way as well, there's obviously some potentials for later in the year and sunsets. Obviously sunrise this time of the year on the north coast isn't ideal, just because of most things in your way, but I have a plan for that, and we'll talk about that, or we'll do that in a later video. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed this little extract from the field again. As I say, this is the Giants Causeway on the North Antrim Coast. Definitely worth a visit, certainly worth spending a day here. Don't just hang out at the normal spot where the little shuttle bus can drop you off. Really explore the area. It is absolutely beautiful, and it doesn't help that, helps that it's a rather nice morning as well. So I'm going to sit here, take in this wonderful view, have a little bit of refreshments, and then saunter back to the car and back to the house. So hope you guys have a really good day, and any questions, let me know. Subscribe obviously to the videos and you'll get all the latest stuff, hopefully publishing 1 or 2 of these a week. And as always, any questions or comments, then please let me know. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Bye bye.